Welcome back to the deep dive. You know, there's this feeling we all get sometimes that we live in uniquely chaotic times where every day just brings another shocking headline.
Hmm.
But today, we're taking that whole idea, chaos, destiny, and that feeling that the universe is like actively working against your personal comfort. And we're running a deep dive on a collection of sources, all centered on one single, very misleading phrase.
And that phrase is, of course, that ancient curse that sounds so much like a blessing. May you live in interesting times.
Exactly.
Our mission today isn't just to, summarize the political stuff happening on the counterweight continent. It's to really unpack the fundamental mechanics of chaos itself.
Right.
We're looking at how high-stakes destiny is designed, how it's executed, and what happens when these rigidly ordered societies just smash headfirst into the messy, opportunistic chaos of other cultures.
That curse is such a perfect starting point because it signals right away that we are not talking about peace or prosperity or anything predictable.
No, not at all.
The sources make it absolutely clear. These interesting times are the moments when the cosmic players, the gods, decide to get involved. This is the board where they play their huge, high-stakes games with our lives.
And if you're one of those mortals on the board, well, the prognosis is usually pretty terminal. The great cosmic winner, the force that usually runs the whole universe, is fate.
Right.
And the text says that while, lesser deities might just throw dice, they embrace pure, meaningless chance. Fate plays chess. He's smug, he's predictable, and he asserts this total control over destiny.
Fate relies on these established tropes, doesn't he? He sets up conflicts we've all seen before, like Mad Kings, or
Yeah.
he uses these classic unavoidable disasters, floods and droughts.
Exactly. He's the master of the long game. He sets up his pieces years, sometimes even centuries in advance.
And that leads to this really crucial observation about how he works. When he plays chess, you only realize the outcome is inevitable when it's just far, far too late. And the chilling image we get from the sources is that fate has been setting up the game using two queens the entire time.
Wow. That's such a powerful metaphor. It suggests that what we mortals think of as like complicated free will is often just the most convoluted, agonizing path to a conclusion that was already decided from the start.
It's the ultimate fatalism, but that's exactly what creates the vacuum for the opposing force, you know? It sets the stage for a conflict that's less about armies and more about these huge cosmic philosophies.
Yeah.
So let's unpack the players in this celestial game, starting with the ultimate constant.
So when we talk about fate, we're really talking about an entity whose entire nature is just infinite inevitability. His eyes are described as, well, they're hardly eyes at all. They're more like dark holes that lead into this infinity, speckled with what might be stars.
He's the clockwork mechanism of the cosmos.
That's it. And his certainty is almost annoying to the other gods. We hear that even, Awful the crocodile god grumbles that fate is a spectacularly poor winner because he's never surprised.
He spoils all the cosmic events.
Exactly. And then the variable appears, the lady.
Aye.
She is the mysterious, chaotic element who just throws a wrench into that perfect clockwork. And there's this constant debate among the gods over whether she's even a proper goddess at all.
Well, she's rarely worshipped, right? And the sources are very clear that if you trust in her, you seldom survive.
That is the key distinction. Fate offers certainty, even if that certainty is your death. The lady offers hope, but with absolutely zero guarantees.
She's summed up perfectly in the text as simply the waitress in the Last Chance Saloon.
Such a brilliant, concise description. It implies she serves up the inevitable, but, she does it with a smile. She offers you one last shot at defiance, even if the odds were completely impossible.
And while fate's eyes are black holes, hers are this vibrant, dangerous color.
Emerald green, edge to edge. It signifies pure, unpredictable chance.
So fate challenges her to name a location for their game, and he's assuming she'll pick some quiet, out-of-the-way place.
Right.
Instead, she immediately chooses the counterweight continent, home of the Agatean Empire. This is the ultimate stage for ordered, rigid conflict.
A region ruled by 5 noble families, the Hongs, the Sungs, the Tangs, the McSweeneys, and the Fangs. For centuries, they've been locked in this endless, highly structured struggle for control.
And we have to pause here because the cosmic definition of nobility is something else.
Oh, it is. When the other gods ask what makes these families so worthy of their attention, the lady gives this chilling summary.
They're all incredibly rich.
And they've had millions of people tortured and butchered to death just for reasons of expediency and pride.
And the other gods just sort of nod solemnly.
Yes, exactly. From a celestial viewpoint, that is precisely the definition of noble behavior. It's the grand old game of power, played with predictable tools: steel, tactics, politics, war.
And Fate points out that the Hongs are currently the most powerful family, already set up to win.
And this is where the lady makes her truly inspired, chaotic opening move.
Yeah.
Instead of picking a weaker family, an underdog, to inject some chance into the game,
She picks the Hongs, the family Fate already intended to win.
she picks the fated winners. Then she makes her move without any pieces on the board. She just opens her hand and releases the one force that can truly disrupt Fate's mechanism: organized, expanding chaos.
And that force is the quantum weather butterfly.
The Papilia Tempestae.
No.
And this brings us to the actual mechanism of how chaos beats order, and it requires us to dive into some really mind-bending stuff here.
Right. It's an outwardly unremarkable butterfly, undistinguished yellow, looks like a common fritillary. But the source says, no, look closer, specifically at the ragged edge of its wings.
And this is where we run into the reality of fractals and, the limits of human common sense.
Yeah.
Because the edges of the wings are a little ragged, if you try to measure that edge down to the microscopic level, you quickly realize it's infinitely long.
It's the same principle as a coastline, right? If you measure it down to every grain of sand, it just goes on forever.
Exactly. And this leads to a moment where pure logic just completely steamrolls our senses. If the boundary, the edge of the wing, is infinitely long,
Then the wings themselves must be infinitely big, even though they look normal size to us.
our brains just prefer common sense over logic, so we dismiss it. But the physical reality of those infinite edges is what gives the butterfly its power. It lets it manipulate the delicate fabric of reality.
Its core function is to create weather.
And it didn't start as some grand scheme. It was just a survival trait. If a hungry bird got too close, the butterfly could, whip up a nasty, highly localized tornado to save itself.
But that little defense mechanism scaled up fast.
It evolved into a secondary sexual characteristic. We get this fantastic image. A male butterfly flaps his wings lazily in the rainforest, and a fortnight later, 1,000 miles away, the newspapers run the headline, "Freak gales cause road chaos."
It is the perfect engine of disruption. A small bit of chaos here expands exponentially and triggers these massive continental-scale consequences.
Which perfectly supports that philosophical nugget from the wizard Lytin Weedle. He says chaos is found in greatest abundance wherever order is being sought.
And if we dig into why chaos always beats order, the answer is so counterintuitive.
It's because chaos is better organized.
Exactly. It's inherent. It's woven into the fractal nature of reality through that butterfly. Order tries to impose rules from the outside, which takes effort and enforcement. Chaos just follows its own infinitely complex rules instantly.
And this is the deep insight the lady brings to the game. She doesn't need physical pieces. She doesn't need a strategy book. She just needs to introduce a single, perfect source of organized, expanding, self-perpetuating chaos into the system that fate thought was locked down.
That single yellow butterfly, that's her second queen.
That's the second queen.
So the game is set. We have the unstoppable force of organized chaos meeting the immovable object of rigid order, which leads us to our next section. The two civilizations that embody this cosmic clash.
Now we shift from the cosmic down to the practical. The clash between the rigidly structured Agatean Empire, the place fate chose, and the messy, opportunistic efficiency of Ankh-Morpork.
The Agatean Empire on the counterweight continent is the absolute epitome of perfect, brittle, self-contained order. And to understand that containment, you have to start with the Great Wall.
It's so much more than bricks and mortar. It's not just a defense. It's an act of metaphysical definition.
Most people see it as a defense against invaders, sure, but its true function is way deeper. It's a marker. It defines the universe itself.
Inside the wall is the universe, which in the Agatean language is the exact same word as empire.
And outside.
Outside is just nothing.
Yeah.
So anything or anyone outside that wall, demons, foreign visitors, whatever, they're considered ghosts. Or, and this is crucial, they're only one brushstroke away from the word for victim.
Wow, so the wall is just this affirmation that nothing worthwhile or real exists beyond their borders. It's pure cultural hubris.
In deliberate isolation. The walls are sheer, designed to discourage those boring people who think there might be something interesting on the other side. And this culture of perfection radiates down from their leader, Lord Hong.
Lord Hong. He's 26, unnervingly thin, handsome, always wears these small, circular, steel-rimmed spectacles.
He represents governance achieved by absolute perfection and the ruthless application of fear. The sources tell us exactly how he got his position. relentless application, total focusing of his mental powers, and 6 well-executed deaths.
We should probably linger on the well-executed deaths because that really tells you everything about Agatean power.
It does. The last death was his own father, which, we're told, happily maintained a noble tradition of upward mobility through patricide.
Everything he does is calculated for both aesthetic and practical perfection.
His watercolors are perfect, his poetry is perfect, even when he folds paper, every single crease is flawless, even his hobbies are lethal.
The kite flying. It's not a hobby, it's a demonstration of superiority. His kite string is coated with glue and ground glass to saw through his competitors' lines.
It's lethal, genteel, and highly refined warfare, just in miniature. He doesn't even want total victory yet. He actively cherishes his rivals, Sung, Fang, Tang, McSweeney, because their competence keeps him interested.
He needs just enough opposition to stay perfectly sharp.
And this obsession with order just bleeds into their whole concept of warfare. It's all governed by the art of war, this huge, rule-bound book for civilized conflict. Things like, no fighting in the forbidden city, the emperor is sacrosanct.
And that highlights the paradox of extreme order, doesn't it? The practical result of all this perfection is that warfare becomes sensible, but also inefficient. It's short bursts of activity followed by long periods of people trying to find the right rule in the index.
The rules make efficient action basically impossible, and the bureaucracy is another huge weakness stemming from their written language.
Right, the 7,000 letters. You have to paint these intricate pictograms with a paintbrush.
So the pace of communication is just glacial. The text gives this incredible example. It takes a eunuch all day to write a 13-syllable poem about a white pony trotting through wild hyacinths.
That might be beautiful, but you can't run a government like that. You can't react to anything in a timely manner.
Lord Hong even recognizes this grudgingly. He sees that Ankh-Morpork system, their alphabet of just 26 crude, ugly letters, somehow manages to produce great poetry, but more importantly,
It also produces quick, concise meeting minutes and efficient orders.
exactly. Complexity here is inversely proportional to functional efficiency.
And the greatest example of this whole systemic problem has to be the Agatean examination system, the only path to public office and security.
It's a masterpiece of bureaucratic misdirection. To get a job as, say, an assistant night soil operative, a job that requires practical skill, the exam focuses entirely on aesthetics.
It asks for a 16-line poem on evening mist, a question on metaphor, a question on music, nothing about sanitation or logistics.
Now I've got your own shovel, have you?
Right. The practical realities are completely ignored. The whole system is designed not to produce competent workers, but to produce a specific class of person, a bureaucrat, who is totally disconnected from the work they're supposed to oversee.
It's a self-perpetuating system of aesthetic rigidity.
Now, contrast that immediately with its mirror opposite. Ankh-Morpork, the home of chaotic efficiency. The patrician, Lord Vetinari, runs a system governed by results, not by beautiful calligraphy.
He finds butterflies, those little engines of chaos, mildly offensive because they enjoy themselves in an unprofitable way.
That says it all. This is a city that understands the need for quick, actionable information.
And their operational genius often comes from embracing that chaos, largely through the unseen university. The wizards there, Ridcully, Ponder Stibbins, they are masters of meddling with things we don't understand.
I love Ridcully's philosophy. If we hung around wait until we understood things, we'd never get anything done.
It's so pragmatic. And they use a tool that is the physical manifestation of Ankh-Morpork genius. Hux, the thinking engine.
Built by a glassblower with hiccups, run by ants and clockwork. It's this beautiful, chaotic mix of high magic, the artisanal, and the just plain weird.
And they use Hex to calculate the fantastically complex logistics for teleporting Rincewind halfway across the disk. But Ponder, the analytical one, has these deeper philosophical worries about the machine itself.
He worries that the act of observation changes both the observed and the observer, a classic physics problem applied to magic.
But more than that, he suspects Hex is redesigning itself, that it's teaching itself things the wizards never intended. It's an early look at, recursive self-improvement and the dangers of magical AI.
He starts habitually saying thank you to it.
Right, and he feels ridiculous for anthropomorphizing a bunch of glass tubes and formic acid. But that instinct just shows that Hex has developed its own unpredictable personality.
And it gives us those perfect chaotic outputs that show its nascent sapience and its struggle with existence.
Like when they asked it why it was doing something and the machine came dangerously close to destroying itself.
But the famous one, the truly classic one, comes after Ponder writes this massive spell, The response scrolls across the screen.
Don't mention it. Plus, 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 plus out of cheese error. Redo from start.
A magical thinking engine that can run out of cheese. It's the perfect symbol for Ankh-Morpork's practical, unpredictable genius. It works, but only as long as its basic, mundane needs are met.
So we have the collision point. The Agatean Empire, where every action is perfect but slow, and Ankh-Morpork, where every action is a chaotic mess but somehow gets the job done quickly.
Now let's see how they try to introduce the most reluctant engine of chaos into the Agatean system.
All this cosmic and political maneuvering finally converges on the most unlikely person imaginable. The wizard Rincewind, who is currently enjoying a rare 6-month-long moment of peace on a raft in a blue lagoon.
He calls himself a sad, hopeless person who has to write wizard with 2 Z's on a coconut hat just to remember who he is.
After 6 months on a desert island, he finally realized the one thing he genuinely missed, the one thing he never appreciated in Ankh-Morpork because it was always there, was them, other people.
Rincewind is just a profound study in psychological resignation. He suffers from what he calls preemptive karma.
Right.
If it looks like something nice might happen, a good meal, a moment of comfort, something bad happens right now instead, specifically to stop him from enjoying the future good thing.
He gets the indigestion before the meal is even served. He feels so awful he never even manages to eat it. It's not just bad luck. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy rooted in this deep resignation.
He anticipates disaster so completely that his fear becomes his shield. He actively craves dullness as the ultimate defense against fate or the lady.
And dullness is promptly denied.
Wow.
He's sought out as a great wizard by the Agateans via this highly trained but ultimately useless, pointless albatross.
An albatross that requires anchovies and fish paste for a 6,000-mile round trip.
Yeah.
And Vetinari handles the message with just masterful diplomatic denial.
Oh, it's brilliant. He tells the wizards, "This is not one of those birds the Agatean Empire uses. We have no contact with that mysterious land. And this bird is not the first to arrive. And it did not bring a strange and puzzling message. Do I make myself clear?"
And yet, they get the message. A pictogram on paper that looks suspiciously like /// wizard.
So the mission, facilitated by Ponder and the university, requires these incredibly complex calculations for Rincewind's teleportation.
And Ponder tries to explain the difficulty to a completely oblivious Ridcully. He has to account for vectors, the orbital spin of the disk, the fact that if they get it wrong, they'll crash into the counterweight continent twice a year.
But the truly terrifying part, the real logistical nightmare, is the mass exchange. Teleportation means swapping Rincewind's exact mass with the mass of something 6,000 miles away.
And if that swap weight is wrong, the consequences are gruesome. Ponder fears Rincewind could arrive as a me-shaped hole, a vacuum.
Or worse, if the exchange is faulty, he might just travel at terminal velocity and the deceleration would be, well, terminal.
It says a lot about the wizard's priorities that they ultimately agree to exchange Rincewind for a barking dog, a ceremonial cannon.
It really does. And Rincewind, having been rescued from his raft, is only reluctantly convinced to do this because he's promised his old job back, the right to call himself a wizard, and most importantly, never having to go anywhere again.
He also demands a new hat with 3 Z's and glass chandelier things around the brim.
And the wizards, completely missing his sarcasm, assure him he'll be back with surgical precision.
Which, Rincewind, knowing them, translates as to within an inch or two, accompanied by a lot of screaming, and then they pour hot tar on you just where your leg was.
The teleportation happens. Rincewind lands, predictably, in a snowdrift and is immediately chained up, only to be freed, or rather, kidnapped, by another force of pure chaos, Cohen the barbarian.
Cohen is just this magnificent, impossible figure. 90 to 95 years old, looks harder with age, like oak. And he's got teeth made of diamonds, or maybe troll teeth.
He and his companions, the Horde, represent the original untamed chaos of heroism. There's Boy Willie, Caleb the Ripper, Truckle the Uncivil, and Mad Hamish, who is confined but lethal in a bladed wheelchair.
And their philosophy is basically a lament for modern adventure. They see no future in heroism anymore. People complain if you kill a dragon.
Cohen says civilization is just what happens when they ban swords, so only outlaws have them.
He tells the story about being accosted by a man who said his troll teeth were offensive to trolls, which perfectly captures the difference between their era and now. The modern world is just full of bureaucratic annoyances.
With the Horde is Mr. Savaloy, nicknamed Teach, a former school teacher, geography and Oriental studies. He traded chalk for sword, realizing the hazards were about the same.
And he provides this crucial political insight when they free a group of prisoners.
He notes that the newly freed prisoners are just waiting for someone to tell them what to do next.
That's the psychological fallout of rigid order. When the system breaks, the people are so used to instruction they can't even conceive of freedom without a new set of rules.
And the Horde operates under this remarkably simple and surprisingly sound economic philosophy. They're honest in their own way. They steal from the rich, but not the poor.
But not out of any moral high ground just because the poor have no money.
Exactly. And this leads to their key economic contribution. All their subsequent spending on drink and women and hangers-on keeps the money in rapid circulation.
Which Mr. Savoy observes is always a praiseworthy thing in any society. A little barb at wealth hoarding.
When they talk about their future, their final grand adventure, they find modern life just unbearably complicated. They're struggling with concepts like pensions and tax collectors named Six Beneficent Winds.
They are purely concerned with the simple action, the fight, the heist, not the bureaucratic follow-up. They are the ultimate agents of simplification, perfectly positioned to disrupt an empire drowning in its own complexity.
Pure action replacing endless, rule-bound thinking.
So Cohen and the Horde, they're heading straight for the forbidden city of Hung to fulfill their destiny. And Rincewind, fulfilling his, runs in the exact opposite direction.
Only to stumble straight into the Agatean underground, the Red Army.
Which is anything but a hardened revolutionary force. It's a group of extremely enthusiastic, incredibly polite children and young adults. Characters named Butterfly, Lotus Blossom, Two Fire Herb.
And their revolutionary fervor is completely tempered by this extreme cultural courtesy. Their slogans are perfect.
Steady progress and limited disobedience while retaining well-formulated good manners.
You can't overthrow a government with that. They're staging a revolution that's just too well-behaved to succeed in a society built on politeness.
And they draw their inspiration from the legend of the Golem army. They believe that centuries ago, a great wizard helped Emperor One Sun Mirror by forging the first Red Army from mud and lightning.
And this army had unstoppable, perfect discipline. The current rebels, like Butterfly, they believe in the legend's power to inspire, but they don't believe it's literally true.
But Rincewind, who has survived more political intrigues by accident than any spy, he analyzes the situation instantly. He realizes the whole thing is being manipulated.
Someone Lord Hong wants unrest, but only just enough to justify a massive military crackdown.
Rincewind gets that they're stuck at the slogan and poster stage of revolution because they're too culturally polite to actually commit to a violent overthrow of a polite society. They can't break the rules they know.
Meanwhile, the Horde needs to get into the Forbidden City, which leads to the brilliant absurdity of Mr. Savoy's plan.
They disguise themselves as old eunuchs.
It relies on Savoy's deep understanding of bureaucracy. People don't notice those carrying papers, and eunuchs hold these exalted yet invisible positions.
This disguise is profoundly offensive to the Horde's hypermasculine sensibilities. They suffer extreme indignity, especially when Truckle is ridiculed for seeming to mince around saying, "Hello, Sultan."
And Savoy, the former teacher, has to patiently correct them that this phrase means the glutton dances, a commentary on their lack of grace.
Once inside, they face the elite Imperial Guards, the ninjas, supposedly the finest fighters in the world.
And the Horde's fighting style is the complete opposite of that technical precision. They fight slowly, with incredible care, relying entirely on a lifetime's experience of not dying.
They don't waste energy, they don't do fancy moves, they just let the highly trained enemy run around and exhaust themselves.
Caleb the Ripper gives us the perfect example of this anti-martial arts philosophy against a ninja. The ninja focuses entirely on Caleb's raised hand, which is just a distraction.
And while he's looking at the hand, Caleb kicks him in the groin.
And concludes with the philosophical nugget, because you should have been watching this foot. It's the triumph of pragmatic, ruthless experience over codified, theoretical perfection. The ninja is just undone by a simple, effective, dirty move.
And while the Horde is causing this practical havoc, Rincewind stumbles on the Empire's core economic weakness during an exchange with a street merchant, DMH DePaula.
They're discussing paper money. The Agatean system is so rigid and contained that DePaula believes his paper money is literally worth more than gold.
He's just shocked when Rincewind mentions the vast inflationary scale of counterfeiting back in Ankh-Morpork.
The insight here is profound. The Agateans are incredible craftsmen. They can make fine china you can read a book through, But their culture of perfection has stifled all economic innovation. They lack the aggressive market tactics and financial ruthlessness of Ankh-Morport's venal and greedy citizens.
And Rincewind feels this intense, almost patriotic pride in his venal countrymen, realizing that their greed and opportunism, their willingness to cheat and adapt, is actually a massive source of economic resilience. Purity equals brittleness.
Realizing he's being hunted, Rincewind is forced into a tactical confrontation with the Imperial armies surrounding the city, and he uses his one and only true genius, strategic tactical fear. He becomes the fourth horseman of panic, which he names denial.
His method is simple but devastatingly effective. He spreads denial, knowing people believe what they're not told, what they have to fill in the blanks about.
He goes around the camp asking these highly specific, terrifying questions framed as denials. I'm sure there's no huge, hungry army of vampire ghosts out there, are there?
And he's quickly corrected. No, there's 7 old men. But the damage is done. The seed of the vampire ghost army is planted.
This masterstroke of misinformation just spirals. The troops start hearing they're facing invisible, blood-sucking vampire ghosts and armies of the undead. Rincewind didn't invent the lie, he just created the void, and their own cultural superstition filled it perfectly.
And Lord Hong, seeing the morale crisis, makes a fatal, spectacularly misjudged move to combat this. Instead of calming them, he orders his generals to tell the men that behind them will be a billion ghosts of the Empire, ready to strike them down if they retreat.
He was trying to scare them into facing Cohen, but the effect is the exact opposite. It crushes any remaining morale. Why fight a ghost army in front of you if you're guaranteed a billion ghosts attacking you from behind?
His attempt at ultimate order leads to ultimate internal breakdown.
The final confrontation just explodes on the central hill overlooking the Forbidden City. Rincewind, fleeing, finds himself in a subterranean chamber where he accidentally activates this ancient magical armor, the relic of the first great wizard.
As chaos reigns outside, a lightning storm hits the iron pagoda on the hill, channeling massive magical power right into the chamber, into the armor.
And this accidental activation fulfills the ancient legend in the most literal, terrifying way. The Red Army rises from the earth, not as polite children, but as massive, unstoppable golems. Rincewind realizes they're made from the rich, sticky red soil of the hill itself.
They're heavy, mechanical, and they rise with these permanent, unsettling smiles molded onto their faces. They are pure, disciplined power, driven by lightning, performing the same unstoppable moves regardless of who or what is in their way.
The vast armies of Lord Hong, already terrified by the ghost rumors, immediately dissolve in complete chaos, mud, and panic. Many soldiers are killed not by the golems, but just by inter-army fighting and the scramble to escape.
Total chaos. In the aftermath, Cohen the barbarian just walks right through it all and takes the throne. Easily.
And his first acts as emperor are characteristically barbarian, yet highly effective and immediately popular.
He proclaims, "No more kowtowing. The elaborate head-banging ritual is out. Instead, you can salute or give him money."
An immediate simplification of etiquette. And, crucially, all torturers would have their heads cut off, eliminating a symbol of bureaucratic cruelty. Plus, free pigs for every peasant. A quick, effective redistribution of wealth.
Cohen proves that an old barbarian focused on simple, direct action can govern more effectively than 1,000 overly refined bureaucrats drowning in their own perfect rules.
But the game is still volatile. Even with Cohen on the throne, Lord Hong attempts one final, cynical, desperate move. He sets up a poisoned pork ball explosion in the palace to try and assassinate the new emperor.
Which just highlights that great recurring truth from the sources. Grand viziers are always complete and utter bastards, basically in the job description.
The bomb detonates. Cohen survives.
But tragically, Mr. Savaloy, Teach, is killed in the explosion. And we follow his journey to the afterlife, where he meets death in this silent, brilliantly lit midnight black desert.
And it's here he learns the immediate fate of his murderer. He asks about Lord Hong, who didn't believe in ghosts.
And death confirms Hong is now being met by a desert full of impatient ghosts. Divine retribution, delivered with terrifying speed.
Mr. Savaloy, ever the pragmatist, accepts a ride to the afterlife with a massive Valkyrie. He's excited about Valhalla, not just for the fighting, but because he hopes to start evening classes, maybe teach table manners or basic geography to the dead heroes.
He figures since heroes get a better class of heaven, it's worth a try.
Meanwhile, back in the celestial realm, fate is still trying to claim a win. He argues with the lady that the game is a draw because her most valuable piece, Rincewind, must have been destroyed upon returning to Ankh-Morpork.
Right, by hitting the wall at terminal velocity, just like Ponder calculated.
But the lady smiles, and she denies him that victory. She states firmly she never sacrifices a pawn and that she plays not to lose.
And Hex's complex calculation was flawed, not by magic, but by a beautiful piece of mundane, Ankh-Morporkian chaos.
A small but significant ant sucked nectar from the glass pipes, altering the destination vector just enough.
So the final result of the teleportation is revealed. The barking dog cannon is sent back to Unseen University, where it hits the wall at 500 mph and is laminated onto the stone, creating an interesting effect for the wizards.
And Rincewind himself is sent to the far edge of the map, to the continent known as XXXX, a land not even properly drawn in. He lands in a place of heat, red sand, and ghost gums, where he's immediately mistaken for Kangaroo Bloke.
The local hunters try to give him a boomerang adorned, fatefully, with a butterfly design. And Rincewind, recognizing the symbol of the chaos that has chased him across the world, just throws it away.
Shouting, "I'm not playing, that's the last time the universe is going to trick Rincewind," just before the boomerang, obeying the laws of that chaotic universe, circles back and hits him, confirming his inescapable destiny.
And this brings us full circle, right back to the core tension of the Curse of Interesting Times. We saw so clearly how systems of perfect, highly structured, rule-bound Order Lord Hong, the Empire's bureaucracy, are fundamentally brittle.
They just lack the adaptability to respond to the truly organized, opportunistic chaos that the Lady's Butterfly introduces.
The lesson is clear. When you're faced with the relentless complexity of interesting times, the rigid pursuit of perfection only leads to stagnation and catastrophic collapse. The messy, opportunistic chaos of Ankh-Morpork, personified by Rincewind's ability to survive through pure, desperate fear, or Cohen's willingness to just ignore the rules, that proves to be far more resilient.
The Lady's game is never about a clean victory. It's about ensuring the game continues. She prefers flux, dynamism, survival by adaptation. So you, the listener, have to decide. Is structure and predictability better, giving you the comfort of rules and traditions, even if that means ultimate collapse when the system breaks?
Or is the inherent chaos of interesting times, that constant flux, unpredictability, and necessary adaptability, the only way to truly survive and thrive? Because what we learn today is that the universe, operating under the highly organized rules of chaos, will always find a way to make the boomerang return, no matter how perfectly you try to build your defenses.
The choice is whether you stand on a wall of brittle perfection or you learn how to duck.
That was a deep dive into destiny, fear, and the surprising efficiency of cheese errors. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you next time.